Since the release of Update 1.1 in Satisfactory, we have received dozens of bug fixes and quality of life improvements. In this video, we'll be going over all the biggest changes we've made so far. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of bug fixes and improvements to go through in today's video, but I'll be starting off with Update 1.1.0.1, which is the long way of saying the first patch notes since Update 1.1 came out. There's a lot of information to get through, so I'm going to be reading every single point and then highlighting the most important ones. Starting with, fixed an issue where mouse clicks in photo mode would trigger equipment in hand. Great, I'm happy they fixed that. Potential fix for scenarios where blueprint auto connections would sometimes not work in multiplayer. Great. Now there's quite a few bug fixes that only impact multiplayer. Personally, I don't play multiplayer, so do let me know in the comments down below if you guys do play multiplayer or on dedicated servers. Let me know if this has actually been fixed or not. Anyway, the third potential fix is for issues with the vertical movement of the dedicated camera in photo mode. Again, I most certainly did notice this. I just released a video giving a tutorial about the decoupled camera, so I'm glad that they did fix this because I did notice this on day one. They also fixed a crash for clients and multiplayer when host is using signed holograms. Great. Fixed an issue where hard drives list in the MAM would not activate its scrolled box, making it impossible to select or research hard drives if the list was too long. This sounds like a very complicated issue, but I'm very glad they were able to fix it there because, again, that does sound rather annoying. Furthermore, they fixed a snapping issue when snapping a railway to a buffer stop. Great. They've also fixed an issue where the MAM buttons would be sticky, so their hover over menu would continue displaying and only close when you stopped hovering on them or hovered in another category of the mouse. This sounds a bit confusing, maybe it's because I'm just a bit dyslexic, but I don't understand what this means. But essentially, I think it would just hover over something that you didn't want it to hover over, so I'm glad they fixed that. They've also fixed new buildables not appearing in the icon library. Now, I didn't even notice this, and again, this was a fairly early on update, so maybe they just fixed it so quickly I didn't have enough time to notice it, but that's fantastic regardless. They've also fixed a bug where blueprint auto connection were playing a lot of snapping and sound effects when auto connecting to an open-ended railway junction. Great, that does sound rather annoying, but again, I never even noticed that. They've also fixed a hologram not being able to be nudged when snapped to an attachment point. Great. And lastly, they fixed snapping points in the bottom part of the basic shelf unit. I think I did notice this, but I'm happy that they managed to fix it there as well. We've got some more bug fixes to do with Update 1.1.0.1, and here's what they are. So, the inverted look option for mouse should be available again under controls in the options menu. Great for anyone who likes to use the inverted look. We've also got a potential fix for a buildable subsystem crash in multiplayer when the color preset is updated. Great. Another potential fix for a crash when joining multiplayer if the host has a hologram out as a client loads in. That sounds like a weird bug, but I'm glad that they have got a potential fix for that, as well as a potential fix for a crash related to reliable replication on dedicated servers. We've also fixed conveyor lifts built in the reverse build mode, visibly moving in opposite directions, with a side note saying, please note that for saves that have been resaved in 1.1, you will have to rebuild the lifts to fix the visuals. This bug does not affect the actual output of the lift, so they will continue to move items correctly even if they are not rebuilt. Okay, great. So this part I think is the most important. This bug does not affect the actual output of the lift. Of course, if you've got, let's say, a Mark II conveyor belt lift that's supposed to be dealing 120 items, it's not going to suddenly be dealing with 118 or 117. So yeah, that's a good thing, luckily there. And also, the new helmets from the elevator video are now available. Or in case you missed it, Coffee Stain Studios actually uploaded a video where you can see a couple pioneers in the lift ascending into their factory. It was like a little teaser video, but essentially they added a couple helmets and that's pretty cool. Now let's move on to update 1.1.0.2, where the fixed train tracks being able to be branched and create switches from the end of a train station or freight platform, which would result in issues. Great. They've also fixed issues when snapping the personal elevator in Foundations. Now bear in mind, some people might still think this is currently a thing in the game. It's not. I believe they have fixed this. What you will notice though is that you can't snap an elevator onto a foundation, so that's a separate issue, and that's not really an issue, that's like an in-game feature. You're not supposed to be able to nudge or snap elevators on foundations. They snap automatically, which is what this is supposed to be. They've also fixed photo mode poses and pioneer positioning nudge, which affects vehicles and hypertubes. Great. The fixed photo mode reset button not properly resetting nudge and rotation in some scenarios, as well as fixing an issue where in dolly mode and having the bland camera on, the zoom would move in steps instead of smoothly. I'm guessing when they say in steps, it means it's stuttering, and now it shouldn't stutter, so that's good. That's the only thing I can guess that would mean anyway, because I have not really noticed much more of the problems there with the dolly camera, so it's good that they are trying to fix it though and just iron out the problems with it, which is great. They've also fixed a bug where the front attachment point of beams was moved to the back. That's a weird one. Never even noticed that, but again, I'm happy they fixed it. As well as fixing a crash when joining as a client whilst a host has a hologram active, and protection against crashes like this in the future. Great. They fixed a bug where hostile creatures would lose hostility when using photo mode and entering the decoupled camera. I mean, I understand this was a bug, but I wouldn't mind if they kept this because I can imagine it's quite annoying when you're trying to take a picture and then you get rammed by a hog, but oh well, it is what it is. I guess kill the hog first, then use photo mode. We've also fixed rotation inconsistencies when building conveyor lifts, great, as well as fixing train collision notice audio not playing. We fixed crash related to a splitter and mergers in some scenarios, and they've also fixed crashes when loading a save caused by railway switches. Again, like some of the bugs that happen in game development, I can imagine are so frustrating. So one doesn't even begin to understand how something like this could even happen. So the fact that we're able to fix it is great. We've also managed to fix incorrect player name tags in multiplayer when entering the decoupled camera, as well as fixing reverse conveyor lifts not splitting. We've also fixed crash sites respawning after being dismantled. That's a weird one, but again, fantastic that they managed to fix it. And they've managed to fix visual artifacts on the inputs and outputs after dismantling a splitter or merger attached to a conveyor lift that is attached to a floor hall. So the outputs or inputs from a splitter or merger attached to a conveyor lift to a floor hall. Okay, great. Again, a very minor bug, but I'm sure this did affect probably quite a few thousand people. And now finally, onto some quality of life changes. This is the good stuff in my opinion, where essentially they just add extra things into the game that players kind of want. So the first thing is, they've increased the distance for blueprint auto connection detection from 10 meters to 16 meters, which is to foundations. Fantastic. They've also got a blueprint auto connections for pipes and belts now detect connections that are on top of themselves, just like train tracks, great. As well as blueprint auto connections now prioritizing the connection that is most aligned with themselves instead of the closest connection. That sounds about right, I'm happy with that personally. They've also added a new option to hide the HUD whilst inside of all vehicles by pressing T on the keyboard. That's actually a really cool feature, and I'm surprised that hasn't been in the game for a while, and if it has, I've never noticed it at least. Now let's move over to the photo mode, where they've improved the UX by graying out options based on context, as well as they've moved saturation, contrast, and tint to affect the final image, instead of being in the middle of the color, spelt correctly, correction stack to provide a more intuitive and predictable experience. Fantastic. They've also reworked tinting function to allow it to go through the whole color spectrum. They've also added tint intensity slider, increased the decoupled max range. I have actually mentioned this in a video recently, so that's again fantastic. They've also increased the maximum possible value for dolly duration to prevent the camera from moving too fast. Great. And they've increased the maximum dolly duration from 40 seconds from 20 seconds. Another fantastic change that I do mention in the pinned message of that cinematic camera video. I've also got a bunch of things here about controller support, however I'm not going to read through the entire list. If you use a controller, feel free to pause the video at this time, take a screenshot, do whatever it is that you'll like to do, because yeah, this is a lot of information that only affects like 0.1% of the player base. Best believe though I'm talking about this, they added a new track called Ode to the Elevator track in the elevator music, as well as fixing and aiding messages that were missing voice lines. Fantastic. Again, audio fixes, yay, we love to see them. Now moving on to our most recent updates, updates 1.1.0.3, where luckily not too much has been added or removed. First of all, with the bug fixes, they fixed a memory leak that would lead to an object limit related crash when playing for prolonged amounts of time. Great. They've also fixed the radar tower UI not appearing at all when interacting with it. Wow, I've never noticed that myself, and I've used the radar tower quite a few times, so I'm very happy that they were able to fix that. They've also fixed the Blueprint auto connection alignments, so it also considers height differences between connections. I thought they fixed that last time, but maybe that was a potential fix, and now they've finally got a full-on fix. Let's see, hopefully they have fixed that. We've also got a couple of things here regarding modding as well. They removed the factory game API input and export from the FG Blueprint Open Connection Manager. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure if you guys do mod, maybe there's a few modders watching today's video, which thank you for your work, because a lot of mods in this game are generally fantastic. Maybe this will impact you, so that's good, hopefully. And also in regards of localization, they've updated community translated languages with the latest translations, as well as updated languages completion rates. Both of these essentially mean that if you want to try and play Satisfactory with different languages other than English, or I think maybe Spanish, Portuguese, French, and like Mandarin maybe, you can now have some other languages that are just up to date with the proper translations. Regardless, that will just about do it for today. Those are all the bug fixes, quality of life improvements, and other changes that have been added into Satisfactory 1.1. Subscribe if you guys enjoyed, I'll see you in the next video, and goodbye.